Hello and welcome. In today's video, I'm going to cover a subject which not too many people talk about, and that is using what you have and not trying to keep up with the Joneses, as I like to put it. So what do I mean by that? Well, basically, today being the way it is, with loads of social media, there is a new way to sell your products if you are a manufacturer. A lot of YouTube channels and other media sources, through no fault of themselves, I might add, promoting goods distributed by companies in exchange, I should say, for a type of payment, whether that be the product itself, which they get to keep, or payment in monetary terms. Now, I don't have a problem with that at all because everybody has to make a living. I have come across people and spoken to them that keep on buying things and then it becomes a habit and then they get into trouble financially. And musicians being the way we are, but most musicians I know are not wealthy, and they have to go down several different routes, whether it be teaching, gigging, busking, whatever it may be, to make ends meet. And that is quite hard. And also, you don't make a lot of money out of music these days. Even if you're semi-successful, it is hard. So this video is about how can we go about using what we actually have in our studio without having to bankrupt ourselves. You may look in my studio here and see that, oh, well, he's one to talk. He's got lots of guitars, lots of pedals, plugins and such else. This has been acquired over 4 decades. A lot of my guitars, at least 50% of them were bought used, and I got a good deal on them. But that's because I knew what I was going for. And I think that's the first thing. You need to know what you want. Which direction are you going in? What kind of music do you want to play? Do you want to be purely a musician? Do you want to produce and mix as well for yourself or for other people? What is it you want? What direction do you want to go in? And that should open up a path for you to then say, okay, these are the things I want, and then look into what kind of instruments or pedals or amps or mixing boards or plugins you will need to accomplish your goals. Right here now, I'm going to give you a quick example of that very thing. Who is subscribed to my channel and who watches my videos will know that I'm a guitar player. I am also a bass player, and I'm a producer and a mixing engineer. They're my things, and I have acquired those skills over a long period of time. So the first thing, before I move on any further, is that if you want to get good at anything, generally in life, but certainly in music, you can't do it overnight. I think there's a misconception out there that a lot of people, especially youngsters today, with the advance in technology, that is great. It's good for all of us because it makes it a much more level playing field. So I'm very appreciative of the advancement in technology. I'm not against it at all, but it can open up some pathways to where people might think that they can get somewhere easy. And that seems to be a big topic today. I've certainly noticed a lot of the youngsters today, without being disparaging, I think there is a lack of attention, mainly due to the way the world is with social media. I see people on their phones on a train just flicking through things. But if you want to move on and actually accomplish something within your goals, if you want to move forward and you actually want to become quite an accomplished musician or producer or mixing engineer, then you need to do a bit more than that. Patience is the key. It takes time. I've been producing and mixing for 30 years. I've been playing guitar for over 40 years. That's a long time. I'm always learning. I'm still learning today. You are never the finished product. So just bear that in mind. Doing this not as a lecture to people, I'm doing this hopefully as a favour to those of you who especially are starting out. Go in, enjoy it. Enjoy it for what it is, have fun. There's no point in doing anything in life if you're not really having fun with it, but certainly music. Music is all about fun. Yeah, it's the greatest language in the world. We should always have fun doing it. And if you're playing for a bit and you get a bit bored, leave it. Go away. Come back when you feel inspired and you've had a rest and your mind is clear, and you will do much better that way. Okay, so just a little pointer there. Now, going back to money and buying things that are not expensive. This Strat here, I bought this several years back. It's a lovely black used Strat. You can see it's got some knocks on it. Yeah, it's been beaten around and stuff over the years. I bought this used from a local dealer. You can see some cigarette marks on there. I don't smoke, but whoever had this before probably did. You know, it's been used and loved, as I like to say. Okay, now I bought this used for £200 quite a few years back, and this is as good as guitars I've played that are 4 times the price, easily. Okay, that's what I mean by knowing about what you want and the kind of pathway you want to go down. Okay, this is a great guitar. I got it for a great price. They weren't that expensive brand new, I don't think, but they were very, they kind of flew under the radar, these. Okay, the actual name is they're called a PV Predator guitar. I don't think they're made new anymore. You can find them used all around in Europe and US and probably further afield. And this is an example of a great guitar. All I would need, really, if I didn't have all the others, I could do with just this guitar if I really had to. You know, this is what I'm saying. You know, just use one guitar if you're a guitar player, and you can't afford much. Yeah, so this would be an investment. If you're double tracking, for instance, on say a rock song, if you want to do rock or pop or whatever it might be, just switch. There's a 5-way selector. Switch from the bridge humbucker to the neck humbucker and play two different, and you've got two different sounds there. You do not need to go mad buying the latest, newest guitar, because at the end of the day, and I'm going to be very frank here and hopefully not offend people, but the problem is not the gear that you use. The problem is us. Yeah, we are the ones that tell the instruments, the plugins, whatever it is, we are the ones that control them. They do not control us. We control them. And if we are not creative and fluid and exercise quality in whatever we do, whether that's playing a guitar, a bass, a keyboard, using a plugin to its potential, gain staging, all things like that. If we do not understand those things and we're not competent at those, we can't expect good results. So it has to come from us. And that's why it takes time to get good at whatever you're doing in music. I'm going to move on now, and we're going to check out, I'm going to go through some different aspects of how we can get by in music today without having to spend much money. Okay, because we do not need to spend a lot of money. What we need to do is to concentrate on our craft, how we can best utilize that depending on whatever circumstances you are in. And we're going to go and check out some instances of what we can use right now. Right, okay, because of the age we live in, and most of us will be using computers of some sort to play, record, produce, and mix music of whatever genre we want, we tend to either do it on a laptop or on a tower. And that could be either PC, Apple, or Linux. I use Reaper, so this is why I'm showing this page. Now, Reaper is an excellent source, especially for someone starting out. It can be a little bit of a learning curve at the beginning, but Reaper has loads of fantastic videos that can show you how to get up and running pretty quickly. Reaper is free for the first 3 months, so it's great to check out just for that alone, because you can get to see whether it's something you want to use for free. And after that, it's £60, and that lasts 2 versions, which is extraordinary when you consider it against some of the competition. Now, remember, this is about cheap and budget gear, because that is all you really need. You don't need expensive gear, and so that's why I use Reaper. It is a top professional product. It's used by professionals the world over, and it has pretty much, it can be whatever you want it to be. That is the strength of Reaper. No matter what genre you work in, if you wanted to look like a different type of DAW, you can do that through skins. I think that if you're starting out, Reaper is a great path to go down. There are also free DAWs out there today. I suggest that you go onto Google or YouTube and you check these out and you see what else is there, because that might work for you. But what I'm trying to say, as I have all the way through this video so far, is that you don't have to spend a lot of money on gear or software for you to get top results. So we'll move on to the next aspect. Okay, so I'm inside Reaper here, and no matter what DAW you use, I use Reaper, you will have plugins that come standard within that setup, within that DAW of yours, whether it be Reaper, Pro Tools, Cubase, Studio One. It doesn't matter what DAW it is, they will come with their own stock plugins. And guess what? Those stock plugins are excellent. They are all you need, really, to get top results. Yes, they may not look as flash, as shimmery as some of the paid products out there, which are made that way purposely, because who doesn't like something that looks pretty? Yeah. And they all do a good job, these paid plugins. But you could probably, with 2 or 3 of your stock plugins, do exactly the same as what you will get from any of these paid plugins. And we can easily create a stacking effect with effects in Reaper, and probably in whichever DAW you have, you'll be able to do the same thing, creating an effects chain, and you'll be able to bring that back up all the time. So you wanted to create a chain for vocals, you could do that. You create a chain for tracking guitars, you can do that. You can do that in any DAW, not only just in Reaper. And I've got a picture here of some of the free plugins, and these are all great. They will all do the job that you need them to do. Okay, so again, my point is, don't go out and buy the newest, shiniest thing because someone's telling you on YouTube that you need to have this to sound great. Quite honestly, that's complete rubbish. You don't. You can do exactly the same job with the plugins you have within your DAW. Plus, there are thousands of really excellent free plugins out there that are just as good as the paid plugins. But of course, they're not advertised because they're free. Companies that produce these more expensive line of plugins will obviously pay good money to people with channels, and that's a great incentive for them to do that, because again, like I say, it's a business. People need to make a living. The companies need to make a living, and a lot of these guys on YouTube with their channels need to make a living. Not a lot of money is made from production and mixing these days, unless it's at the top end. Okay, so people have to turn to alternative sources, and I understand that. Okay, so I'm not criticizing them, but I'm telling you that, especially if you're starting out and you're afraid of, oh, I can't afford this, well, you don't have to. Go for what you've got, use what you have, and you will be just fine. We're now going to look at some free plugins that you can get that are third party. Right, I have up here in Reaper some plugins that are free, and these are excellent. Some of them are former paid for plugins that a company released a long time ago and have deemed fit to release for free because they are no longer supporting that line. But that doesn't mean that they don't work. They work perfectly fine. And that would be, one of them would be the filter station here, which is by a company called Audio Damage. If you go to Google and check out Audio Damage free plugins, I'm sure that the whole list of these will come up. There's quite a number of them. They come in a set, and you just go and download them. These plugins are fantastic. They're great. Okay, you can do so much with them. This is what I mean by not having to go and pay loads of money for things. You don't have to. Analog Obsession are a fantastic company, and these are essentially free. You can donate to him to help him because, again, he needs to live, and like we all do. And so any little donations that go his way, I'm sure he's going to appreciate. But essentially, these are free plugins. The whole line of them are excellent. They are all top drawer, and they will perform as well as any of the paid plugins out there. So this particular one is a channel strip. It's fantastic. Okay. Another great free resource of plugins is Air Windows. Now, Chris from Air Windows, he's the guy that runs this company, and again, if you want to help him out and donate, then you can. But essentially, again, these are free plugins. They're very simple in the way they look. Okay? It doesn't look like anything flash, but under the hood, these are all great, and there are a ton of plugins, just as there are with the Analog Obsession plugins. There are loads of these, and they are all great. And for free, what more do you want? Okay, so these type of plugins, these free plugins, would add to the free ones that come with your DAW. So there is so much that is available to us today. We're going to move on to the next portion of the video. Okay, so we have more free plugins here. Guess what? There's thousands of them. If you go and just look, go onto Google and search, and you will find, and you will be, I think, very surprised at how good these things are. And remember, it's not the software, it's not the hardware, it's you. You have to get to know how to use these things and how to use them in the way that you want them to work. They're not going to do it for you. Perhaps with the advent of AI, certain things might make that a little easier, but then where's the fun in that? That's my perspective anyway. But these are all free. So I've got 2 amp sims here. This is one. This could be an amp sim, or you can use it as a distortion plugin on, say, something like keyboards or even drums. Yeah. We've got another amp sim. This one's Analog Obsession. It's a high gain amp. You will need some IRs, and if there's anything that I think you should probably pay for, and they don't cost a huge amount of money, and you don't need a whole stack of them. But I would suggest to go to different companies offering IRs that are paid for ones, because they tend to be better and they don't cost a lot of money. Check them out, go onto Google and just get a handful and you'll be set to go. This is a free drum software. There are loads of free drum softwares out there. This is just one of them, as you can see down the bottom, and you can map these to your MIDI area wherever you have that in your DAW. Most of them are fairly similar, and you could create whatever drum pattern you want. Again, it comes from you. What kind of tuning do you want the kick, the snare, the hi-hats to have? Shape, compression, tone, panning, all these things, volume as well, all these things matter. It's what gives the instrument its personality, and it will come from your personality, the way you use these plugins. Are free. This has been out for a long time. Free synthesizer, fantastic. It will make sounds on its own, but there, if you go online and type in Synth 1 preset pack, there was a guy, I think he might have been Japanese, who made something in the region of about 20,000 or so presets, and they're all great. And you can, as long as you have them on directed to, say, an external drive or whatever, you just click down here and then it will take you to where you find out which folder they're in, and then you choose from there. Okay, that's basically the way it works. But this is a great plugin, and again, it's all down to you. What kind of sound do you want? You can tweak with these. You can use some distortion on there if you want. You can add some chorus, add some delay. The sky's the limit with creativity, but it has to come from you. The plugins aren't going to do it all for you. So, but this is all free. I suggest you go, and if you haven't already tried, go onto Google and search for things, use them, and you can always get rid of the ones that you don't want fit into what you are doing. Let's move on to the next portion of the video. If you're enjoying watching this video, please consider smashing that like button and subscribing to my channel so that I can keep on bringing this free content. Right, okay. Another thing that you need to also know and understand is how to use plugins in conjunction with your DAW. So in this instance, I brought up Neural Amp Modeler. Now, this is a fantastic amp modeler. It's free. It was made by a gentleman called Stephen Atkinson, who is a genius. This is open source, so people can add to it. There's a website that you can actually download all the newest and original modelers that have been put up, and basically what this is people modeling their own amps or gear that they have, and it does a fantastic job of it. Some obviously are a little bit better than others depending on their experience in doing this kind of thing and the equipment they have, but on the whole the quality is very good, and it's free. So again, you don't have to go out and buy the latest amp modeler, because this, bring it up, you find the folder where you have your models there, and then I usually don't use this section, so I usually click on here and that will take it out, and then I'll use a free external IR loader, and I can do that, and then you can add post to this. You can add chorus, flanger, phaser, delay, reverb, whatever you want, and there are lots of plugins that do all this that are free. So again, you don't have to spend lots of money. Now, going back to why I brought these two up. Now, this is our system preferences in Reaper. I use a PC, so it's ASIO, and I'm using a Focusrite audio interface. This is important here. Neural Amp Modeler, not all of the amp models, but the majority are made or recommended to work at 48K. What does that mean? Well, here I've clicked into the audio ASIO configuration, and I've taken it from 4100 to 4800 or 48K because that will comply with the requirements of this plugin. If you don't record, you will not get, if you don't record and play at the optimum level, which is 48K for this particular plugin, then you're not going to get the optimum results. So it's important to know these things. So again, this comes with experience and also checking out plugins before you use them to see what their optimal mode of use is. Also, I've played around with the block size. Now, the lower the number, the more immediate sound you will hear. So if you're playing guitar, for instance, and you're tracking a guitar, you don't want to be hearing lag. There's nothing worse than playing something and then you hear it back a second later or half a second later. It's not going to work. But also, if you go down too low a number, the system will start cracking up and you'll hear this crackling sound, and that will be recorded and it will sound like crap. Okay, so you need to work around and find which number works best for you. Now, when I'm tracking at 4100, I can go down to 64 here. Basically, it's like I hear it immediately. And it's the same with this. With 4800, the number has to go higher because there's a higher sample rate. But at 96, I get immediate return, and it's like 4.5 as opposed to 4. So it's great. So you need to play around with these. This is very important. If you're mixing, then this number would go up to something like 1024, because then you wouldn't be tracking, you're just basically using plugins to enhance the sound. That's the best and the easiest way I can explain that. So just know that you want a lowish number here to be tracking, and that's whether it's guitars, keyboards, drums, whatever it is. If you're mixing, then you want it to be a high number, and normally that's about 1024, 1024. Okay, so we'll move on to the next portion of the video. Okay, another topic that comes up quite a lot is gear, so hardware. So I have a picture of a MIDI controller here. I use one that's not too dissimilar, which is M-Audio's Code 25, which is very similar to this one. Look, it's under £100, okay, and these things will last a long time as long as you look after them. Okay, they're MIDI driven, so you'll just put a MIDI cord in the back here, plug it into a USB, and you're ready to go. And you have an all-in-one solution here. You have faders if you want to map. So like in Reaper, we have the ability to map pretty much whatever we want to, whether it be faders, pads, knobs. We can do all of that, and I'm sure you can do that in whichever DAW you're using. You have a keyboard here, so you could play drums, for instance, on the keyboard, or you could play them on pads. You could play piano, synthesizers, whatever else, romplers, all sorts of stuff with this MIDI keyboard. All you have to let it know is within your DAW, let your DAW know which controller you're using. These days they usually are able to find those. They do in Reaper, I'm sure they do it in most other DAWs, so it's quite easy to go. Just get started, and if you're into electronic music, this pretty much is all you will need, and possibly a microphone. And you can find lots of very good quality microphones at budget prices. You don't need anything spectacular. You don't have to spend thousands of pounds unless you are wealthy and you want to do that. Really, the sky's the limit, as I've been saying before. You don't have to spend a lot of money. So let's move on. And finally, this is the end of the video, and I've left this to the end because this is an important aspect of what you will need if you're going to be doing anything with music with computers, and that is your audio interface. This is a great budget option. I have a model that's a couple up from this one. Okay, I've got the 18i8, but this is all you will need really if you are a musician and you produce your own music and mix your own music and you're working from home. Then whether you're on a laptop or a tower, it does not matter. This is all you will need. It's not expensive, as you can see from different sources. You don't have to spend a lot of money on these. They're 24 bits, they're very high resolution, they are fantastic. Your microphone would go in here, as you can see, okay? And then you have a 1/4 inch jack here for guitar, bass, stuff like that. Two gain knobs, one for the mic, one for the 1/4 inch jack. So this is the kind of thing that you will need if you're going to be playing any kind of music. Okay. Also, when it comes to computers, we can't all afford expensive gear. Computers tend to be expensive gear. If you are going to use if I was going to suggest that you use most of your money on a particular thing, I would say use it on the computer, because that is your hub, that is your music powerhouse. The higher specs you can get with whether it's a laptop or a tower, the better and more power you'll be able to use when it comes to playing, producing and mixing music. That is the bottom line. Put your money into the computer and then get other budget stuff, which is great. You do not need expensive audio interfaces. You do not need expensive MIDI controllers. You do not need expensive guitars, unless you can afford those. But if you're going to put your money into something, put it into the computer. Get a good processor, get as much RAM as you can get. I have 32 gig RAM in my computer. That's more than enough. 16 gig will do you just fine. 8 gigs you can get by on, but really I would say the minimum you should be using would be 16 gigs and upwards, and you don't really need more than 32, to be perfectly honest, and you will be good to go. So I hope this information has been helpful to you. Again, I in no way mean to be patronising to anyone. This is just purely my view, and if I had the knowledge I have now when I first started out, it would help me greatly. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon. Sabs out.